All right, so this is where we left off in the previous lesson. So now let's start with the animation. Okay, so the animation isn't complicated, like it's not simulation work or anything. It's just we're going to animate a few parameters. Okay, so the animation is broken up into like 4 sections. Okay, so the first one is just animating the basic cake rising, and the trick to that is that our entire cake is effectively sort of based on a single line in the middle. So the line defines the shape of the base, and then on top of the line we've copied a sphere. So if we animate this line going upwards, we can effectively animate our cake sort of rising over time. So basically that's what we want to do. Okay, now along with that, I also want to animate the sphere itself. So the sphere will be like flat in the beginning, and then as it comes to the top, it will become like a dome. So this is step 1. Step 2 is we want to do the bubbles on top, which is, we'll take a look at that in the next lesson. So the bubbles will be essentially will be like points that are going to be scattered on the sphere, and then they will be used to do like a boolean and then subtract holes from the sphere. So that is point number 2. Number 3 is we want to generate like cracks going on the cake, on the top of the cake. So that will be number 3. And then number 4 is nothing complicated, just the noise that we had created, we're going to reapply it to the sphere and animate the intensity of that. So the cake will be smooth when it's like a dough, and then as it rises and finally forms, you get the noise appearing. So in this lesson, we'll take a look at the basic animation and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so to start off with, what we have is essentially this basic line. Okay, like this line. This is the key to everything. So if we animate this, like if I just take a carve here and I'll just plug this into both places. So what's going to happen is if we animate the second U, okay, let's say if I just take this, do an alt click, come here and like, bring it up. What you'll end up getting is if we come down to the cake, to like the VDB combine, and let's do one thing. This is let's make it 0.1. So it's really fast to calculate. And you'll basically get this. So you'll get the cake sort of coming up. So it's effectively that, like it's as simple, as that. But what we want to do is, make it look a little more detailed than that. So the first thing is, like, I don't want to start from frame 1. Okay, so let's just offset this by about like 10 frames. So we'll start at frame 10 and end at around 90. Okay, so I'll take this point, I'll push it out. Okay, if you don't know how to do this, keep shift pressed and drag with the left mouse button to select a keyframe, and then middle click and then push it out. Okay, so we can take this to around frame 90. Yeah, let's say somewhere over here. And then I'll take this guy and I'll push it ahead to around frame 10. Like if you want, you can also shift click on the parameter name and it will open up the function curve editor, and you can also modify it here. So let's say this should be 10 and then this should be 90. And what we want to do is we want to start at around the halfway mark. So start at around 0.4 and we'll end at 1. Okay, so the end value will be 1. Okay, so we basically have this. But what I also want to do is I wanted to start off a little fast, but then end fairly slowly. So we can just again shift click here, and I'll just take this keyframe and like take the Bezier handle and just pull it out. So it sort of smoothens out as it comes towards the top. So if we look at our animation in the VDB smooth, we should get something. Yeah, it's let me try and see how low we can go with this so it's fast enough. Okay, yeah, you can't see anything there. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's keep this to 0.1. We'll do a separate merge between these two guys because it starts getting slow. The minute you get into VDB and stuff, it doesn't like play in real time. So let's just take a merge here. and we can merge like the polygon level data like over here. This is just for show purposes. So we can just see it. So you'll essentially get that. Yeah, so this is good. This is point number one. Now, the next thing I want to do is, this is my main sphere and the size is over here. Like this is what I'm animating. And what we want to do is, I'm going to do one thing here, which will come into play in the next video. So we want to scatter points on top of this for the bubbles. But what's going to happen is, because the sphere is going to change shape, the points might move. So the simplest way to make sure that the points stay in place is that we can scatter them in UV space, okay, which is an option that is available in the scatter itself. So you don't need to do anything fancy. The only thing we need to do is we need to give our sphere UVs. Okay, so just take a UV project and give it a polar, and that's basically it. And make sure this is on vertices. So you don't need to do anything fancy. So we'll just keep this here and we'll make use of it later. Okay, let me just let me push this down a little bit. We need a little bit of space. Not a lot, just a little bit. Okay, so this is fine. Again, as I said, like this we'll start using the next time. Now let's animate the size. Okay, so the one thing I want to do is like the X and Z scale should be the same. So I'll right click here, do copy parameter and paste relative reference. So these two will be the same. And again, what I want to do is just animate it slightly. Okay, so we're going to start at around 0.8. Let's keep this to 1. Okay, so this is like big enough. And let's go to around frame 24 and we'll alt click, and then we'll come to around say frame 60. Okay, and I'll take this to around 0.85. So not a lot, just it sort of like increases in size as it goes up. And then along with this, I also wanted to, like, once it comes to the top, it should also become thicker. Okay, so let's just come to the merge so we can see what we're doing. So let's come back here, and then what we want is like, see, so as it goes up, it sort of shrinks in size, which is good because we want the sides to start coming up. Okay, so we have the basic animation done. Okay, so the next thing we want is, as it comes up, I also wanted to sort of scale up, like become more like a dome. So what we'll do is we'll animate the y-axis as well. Okay, so let's just come up here to, let's say frame 55. I'll add a keyframe for the y-axis, and then we'll come, like the whole animation is going to be about 10 seconds. Okay, so around till about 240. So this has to be relatively slow. The whole animation, in sense, just the cake, like the icing comes after 240. So we'll come to around 165, and I'll just make it slightly higher like that. Yeah, I think this is okay. So what will happen is this comes up, and then this, like, the cake starts to rise. Okay, so this is good, but now what I also want to do is I want to animate the bulge. Okay, so like what I want is, in the beginning, it should be like, depressed like that. And then as it comes up, it then starts to rise. Okay, so like starting off over here, let's make this a little more flat. Okay, so I can just do shift click. I'll select this guy, make it around 0.35. Okay. So with the bulge, what I want to do is we'll start a little late with that. So around say frame 150, or let's try around 140. Yeah, so at around 140, I'll do an alt click here and then go to around 175 or 180 and just lower it. So it becomes, it goes back to being like a circle or a sphere, sorry. So what will happen is, see, so as it comes up, it's sort of depressed like that. And as it like comes to that point, it starts to rise. See. So if you see this in VDB, it should be a little bit better. Actually, yeah, hold on. I think I know why it's slow. So for now, I'll just modify this. Like if you turn off fill interior, and if you get the exterior band voxels to 3, it will go faster. because the more the exterior band voxels increases, which we need, it needs more time to calculate because the volume box has increased a lot. But for now, just for test purposes, we can see this. So there you go. See, so as it sort of comes up and then it rises and you get like a nice little, like a dome on top. Okay, now along with this, as a final thing, I also wanted to distort a little bit. Okay, like as it rises up, it should be like a little bit wavy. So what we can do very simply is after the copy, like this is the point where it starts to move, we can just take a mountain. And if you just apply the mountain in here, you'll see that it will start to animate. Okay, because it's just moving through space, see, so you'll get this. But that's a bit too much. So let's just adjust this, right? So I'm going to take the height value and we'll make it around 0.1. So just a little bit. But we'll also like lower the roughness and also lower the element size. Yeah, so what you'll get is something like this. See, maybe lower it a bit more. Yeah, so you'll get like this thing sort of starting to animate. But what I want to do is once it rises up to this level, I want the distortion to go down, but I want it to get more rough. So the top looks a little more rough. So what we'll do is, again, like at this point, let's come to around 120 and I'll do alt click on the height, and then around 170, I'll get this down to around 0.02. So it's, it's mostly just this. So it goes back to being a sphere. And then along with that, we'll also animate the roughness. Okay, so again, like we'll start at around the same point. Okay, so alt click here and then come to this point and just up the roughness. See, so what you'll get is as it sort of rises up, it will become, rough like that. So combine all those things together and we should get, a relatively interesting result. So what will happen is it will come up like this. Now, one of the things I want to do is maybe, let's just do one thing. Let's come up to the size here, and I don't want this to extend outwards because it has to be inside that paper. So let's just take this and scale it down. Yeah, okay. So it'll be, a little bit like that. Yeah, this is okay. And then also the y-axis feels a bit too much. So we'll just take the y-axis in the final result. Yeah, and just sort of, scale down the value. Yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, see, so you'll get like this. Yeah, so that's basically it. So this is as far as, like the basic cake animation is concerned. So if I play this, we should get a decent result. You can make changes to the mountain sop to see what kind of noise you want. But yeah, there you go. It's a little slow because it takes time to calculate. But yeah, that's basically it. So nothing overly complicated. Okay, so this is as far as, the basic cake is concerned. Now in the next video, we will make the bubbles on top. Okay, so that's again not overly complicated, but it's slightly tricky. Okay, so we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.